If you have a kid that's average in talent, but he's not involved in strength training right now, as a teenager, growing into those recruiting years, you need to get him involved in it. You need to get him to love it. You've got to fall in love with getting stronger. You got to fall in love with doing what it takes to get faster, bigger, and stronger.
Yeah. I love this idea here of allowing unstructured free play, but at the same, starting that off with an instruction period, and you can use that unstructured free play to take notes. You don't have to be involved in the game at all. It'd be a great opportunity for coaches to sit back and see scenarios play out in front of them and say, oh, we did that wrong.
Yeah.
We need to work on that.
It's a great coach's training tool.
Hello, coaches, parents, athletes, and all sports fans, and welcome to episode 6 of The Coaching Life. We're really excited about today's episode because Pat and I are finally going over a sample calendar year for what we envision a player development program might look like, and unpacking some of the things that we would do if we were in charge of a player development program. And this is where you're going to start to see or hear things that might be a little bit unique to what we envision a player development program would be versus perhaps other programs that your kids have been involved in the past. We don't think it's totally unique. There's probably things that are very similar to a lot of programs around the country, travel programs, other ball programs, but we are just excited about being able to brainstorm here and hoping that maybe one day through beginning the conversation, we might be able to see it come to fruition someday. Here's episode 6, the calendar year for a player development program, and that begins right now.
Well, how you doing, Pat?
Good, Chris. How are you?
Sore.
From what?
Being 46 years old and playing baseball. But it's a beautiful soreness. Wouldn't want to have any other kind of soreness.
I have heard by a number of accounts that you have good reason to be sore. People were very impressed.
Kept going longer than I should have. Every inning.
The old rocket arm there.
Right, yeah, right. No, you get smarter as you get older. That's the thing. I wish I told someone the other day. Well, it was after that game we played. I wish I could take my 46-year-old brain and put it into my 20-year-old self when I was in college, because I would have been a heck of a lot better pitcher.
Yeah, why? Yeah, why do you think?
And everybody would say that.
Yeah. You know what? That is a crazy segue into what we're going to talk about
I guess
today,
so, yeah.
Because I think what you're saying is you are more efficient now in the way that you go about pitching, or your approach to pitching and how you attack hitters.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Very much more efficient, because when you're 46 and you're throwing against 24-year-olds, you're like, I need to throw a lot fewer pitches to get these guys out. And so I know what to throw to get this guy to ground out, get him to pop out. When you see him take a swing, and I got to give if y'all are listening, you don't know, we played in a Pat organized. He gave us old guys an opportunity to play a kids game that we used to play years ago that we love. But I say old guys, but I think our team was the only one that had
we were the
quote unquote
we
old
were the
guys.
old guys.
Yeah, I mean, my gosh, we're playing against guys that graduated high school 2 years ago.
But for the record, we drew the biggest crowd.
You're not kidding.
It wasn't even close.
Oh, we were a crowd favorite, man. but what was I saying before that? Oh, I know what I was saying. I got to give Brock a lot of credit, because my 20-year-old son was catching me, which was actually a really awesome moment. I get really sentimental here talking about it, but he knows what he's doing back there. If I say so myself, he calls a really good game. He understands hitters when he sees them, and it's the reason why he's playing in college right now. But he would call something first pitch. And I would almost know, because I've been doing this for a long time too, with high school players, I would almost know what the next pitch was going to be and where the location was going to be, because he and we were so much on the same page. And if you ask him, how many times did I shake him off? 0.
No, that's awesome.
Not one time. Yeah, we'd throw a hard curveball, to start a guy off, and he would dive out over the plate to try to get it. And I just knew next thing he's going to ask me. Sometimes it would, let's do it. If he looked silly, let's do it again. But if he took a pretty good cut on it and just missed it, we came hard on his hands after that pop up to second base. It was, and that's what I mean by being more efficient. Like you're saying, being more efficient. back then, and when I was in high school and college, I just wanted to blow it by everybody.
Yes.
I wanted to strike everyone out, and I try to tell kids today, because I was a pitching coach before I became a head coach in high school ball. For 7 years, I was a pitching coach. And so I poured myself into helping these guys understand things that I wish I had known when I was their age. For example, learning the changeup, learning a pitch that looks like a fastball, but it's not. So it's a lot more effective as an off-speed pitch than anything that's breaking or moving. If you can throw it well.
Yeah, I think a changeup it's a dying pitch. Not a lot of people throw that as much anymore. Everyone wants to talk about a curveball, but man, if you can throw a fastball and a changeup, you could be pretty dangerous.
Go online and look at like some of the pictures, like the still shots that are taken of some of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. Like I just saw a picture this morning of Trevor Bauer in a Cincinnati Reds uniform. First game he pitched, and you know what the ball looked like in his hand?
Circle change.
He had a circle change in his hand. Yeah, they throw it a lot more than kids realize.
Yeah.
That is a pitch that and not to get into the science of it, but the truth is when you're up the bat, your brain processes a pitch coming at you in thirds in a way physiologically. There are certain things that your brain sees and I learned this from Ted Williams reading The Science of Hitting. Ted Williams is the greatest hitting coach in the world of baseball or softball. It's the same thing.
I agree.
Same exact concept. He says out of a pitcher's hand, and this is what Barry Bonds was so good at recognizing. Out of a pitcher's hand, the first thing that you recognize is the spin of the ball. So you see how the ball's spinning, and your thought is, that's a fastball because it's got backspin on it, or that's a curveball because I can see the dot, or it's rotating a certain way, or knuckleball, whatever. I mean, if you're a knuckleball pitcher, those guys are a whole different category, right?
Right.
Don't use a knuckleball as your changeup. That's another conversation I was having with Keith Carroll actually this past weekend. He had a lot of pitchers that want to throw a knuckleball as their changeup. That's not a good changeup because it's so recognizable, know. And if you're going to commit to a knuckleball, you better be a knuckleball pitcher, and then your fastball becomes your changeup. That's your sneaky pitch, right?
It's all about being off balance.
Exactly. Yep. So anyway, back to that recognizing a pitch. If you're recognizing out of the pitcher's hand that the ball has backspin on it, the first thing you're thinking is that's a fastball. And so you start to load up for a fastball. Well, the second thing that you see is you see the location of it. Actually, that might be the first third. The first third out of the hand, you kind of see this is inside or outside or middle, high or low. So that's the first thing that your eyes are able to see. I think that's one of the things that Barry Bonds was so good at seeing. He was able to see the spin quicker,
at the same time,
as the location. So you can adjust to if it's a curveball, you make the adjustment and keep your hands back as long as possible and drive the pitch as it comes in. But then the last third, that ball is 2/3 of the way to you before you realize how fast it's going. You start your timing and when to trigger. You already start your lower body load. As that pitcher's hands coming forward, but then your hands are triggered once you realize. This is a pitch I'm going to either hold up on or I'm going to swing at. But you only have a third of that amount of time, so it's a split second. Yeah,
about 20 feet.
Yeah, that's about it. And if you think it's a fastball, you're going to trigger your hands a lot sooner. So a changeup looks like a fastball. That's why it's a much more effective off-speed pitch.
There you go.
Curveball it looks different. Curveball's spinning different. So it's quick. A hitter can adjust to a curveball quicker. The reason why so many people look so silly on the changeup is because they don't even know, they don't realize it's a changeup until they've swung and missed.
Yeah.
Or they've swung and rolled over and grounded out to the third baseman or popped it up.
Their brain is actually telling them it's a fastball.
It is.
That's a good point.
So there you go, kids. There's your pitching lesson for today.
Right.
Learn the changeup.
I think what you were saying, what we're talking about here is that if you have a plan going into a situation, whether you're pitching or hitting or whatever it is, if you have a plan, you're more efficient. Yeah. And we talked about that from a coaching perspective, having a practice plan, writing something down, having an idea of what you're going to do going into practice. It makes practice go a lot smoother. And today we're going to start talking about, our player development program schedule and how we envision this taking place over the course of a year. So,
and when you talk about having a plan, that's a great transition.
Yeah.
Nice job. We had no intro for today's show. We were just going to chat a little bit. I think it was our way of getting in that we got a chance to play some ball. So, and I'll tell you what now, you only had 2 at bats because you're at your kids' tournament on Sunday, right?
Yeah.
You have two, more than two?
I had two.
Man, you swung the bat well with two at bats, though.
I appreciate that, Coach.
We got to give you credit on that. So, the tournament director here did a nice job at the plate as well.
Maybe next time I'll get a couple more bats.
Well, let's hope so. Yeah, let's hope so. Well, when we talk about having a plan, if our hope is to create a program that is effective on a large scale, as effective as what current recreation programs are, what current travel programs are, then we have to think on a large scale. So we have to think in what I mean by that is in a yearly way. And I actually, when I wrote the article, let's try something new, player development program, I actually outlined on a month-by-month basis just a sample schedule of what I could just envision. And this was just my initial thought. This was just me sitting down and typing it out. And I'm sure that in a brainstorming room with a whole committee of people planning out an actual program, that a lot of this would change. But for the sake of getting it out there and talking about it and starting the conversation a little bit about what we might do if we had the opportunity to put this together, what would it look like from we're right now, as we're recording this, it's the beginning of August. So let's just go from August to August. Let's go in a year's time, because I really think that would be where you'd want to begin to have an initial sign-up period.
Yeah.
Most rec league sign-ups are in the spring,
right?
Or February or March. Most travel ball sign-ups are not sign-ups; they're tryouts, and those take place in late July or August. And they take place in that way for a reason.
Yep. Yeah, and I think there was a lot of feedback after you wrote that article, and some people kind of picked some things out of the schedule here and said, I don't think it'll work, and they were comparing it to the way they currently did things, or they didn't understand. I know some people were saying, well, you have a year-round schedule here. I don't want my kids playing baseball year-round, and I know you're not, and I agree that we don't want people to have one sport. We want people to play them all. We want our kids.
We are
specifically
advocates of multi-sport athletes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's not an issue either. But just what you said is perfect. And this is an idea that we need to continue to develop. But at the same time, it's an idea that it's going to take a lot of people to get behind to make it work. And when you get a lot of people behind it, and you get a lot of people in favor of it, some of the obstacles that we may see right now based on our current experiences will go away.
Yeah, I agree. And let me ask everybody this. If you know that your child is going to play baseball next spring, he or she's going to play baseball or softball, why would you not go ahead and sign them up in August?
Exactly.
We're not saying that they're going to be playing in August, September, October, November. We have some ideas of things that we could offer voluntarily for kids that aren't involved in other sports and other activities, just to make sure that we are providing the opportunities for this recreational style development. But what's the hang up in signing somebody up in August to play the next year?
Right. I think off the top of my head, because I have served in a role that has allowed me to make schedules and to sign up kids for rec league and things like that. I was thinking about this the other day, and you think about, you just think about the obstacles. Kids might change their mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Things like that happen.
It's football season. I know for my kids, my son played football, and baseball is his favorite, but when you start to get that smell of fall in the air, and August comes around, he was ready for football.
Sure.
And your brain makes a switch, and they weren't thinking about baseball at that time, and that's okay.
Yes.
It's okay. It doesn't mean they're not going to want to play in the spring, because the same thing will happen in the spring when you start smelling that spring air, and you've been tired of being in a basketball gym. If your kid's a 3-sport athlete, then they'll be like, okay, it's time to get the gloves out.
Right.
Let's go sign up for baseball. And it doesn't mean you can't have an additional sign up in early March or February, or as you get closer to the spring season, which I would recommend you do have another one for those that did not have the opportunity to sign up in August. Maybe they moved into town over the winter time. Maybe they just didn't do it. Maybe they didn't hear about it. Maybe they didn't want to, but now they do, so you provide that. But there's a reason also for gathering people in August. And in my mind, one of the big reasons, it has to do with the coaches. It has to do with that's when I would like to see, if I am on a committee to lead a player development program, I would like to use the month of August to train coaches for the coming year. This is what we're going to do. And it's that you could be a lot more intensive in that way. Our schedules could be a lot more flexible, and realizing we don't have to balance this coach's training with practice schedules and game schedules. And it doesn't mean we don't continue to have the collaboration like we talked about in a previous episode, but in terms of getting people prepared, especially newcomers, people who are coming into the player development program from other backgrounds or no background at all in youth sports, this is what we're about.
Sure.
This is our vision. This is the mission. And here's when that takes place.
Yeah. And the first year is going to be different than the 10th year. Mm-hmm. By the 10th year, you're going to have a system in place. The meetings that you're talking about, the new coaches that come in, they're going to be introduced to an environment that's already up and running and already working the way that the leaders envision it to be working. So some of the things that might turn people off this idea, some of the administrative duties would just kind of be second nature at that point for the league.
Right. Yeah, that administratively, this is when you could if a player development program it's going to cost money, just like any other program. Everybody who signs up, either you pay a fee or you request a waiver. I'm assuming that's the way a lot of rec leagues run. A lot of travel leagues, a lot of travel teams run that way as well. I know a lot of people who criticize travel ball say it's too expensive, and some organizations are too expensive.
Yeah.
But there are some organizations that also provide waivers as well, based on fundraising and things, are able to allow kids an opportunity to play who wouldn't normally get a chance to play travel ball. And I know that might be a surprise for some people who are listening who are just anti-travel ball. Mm-hmm. But the truth is, the organization that my son played for provided waivers. We had 2 kids on the team every year that didn't pay a dime. And it wasn't because it was because they couldn't. They wouldn't have been able to play that type of ball had they not had a waiver for their So yeah, it happens.
I know I've mentioned it before, but the quote unquote travel ball team that my older son plays on, Jake, it's never been a high cost endeavor.
It doesn't have
us
to be.
Yeah.
And in this system that we're talking about, it wouldn't be either.
Right.
Because you're not playing nearly as many tournaments. We're playing a lot of games still. A lot of games.
Yeah.
But what cost you a lot of money are those $1,600 tournaments that you're playing. I know yours didn't cost $16, but you just wait. When he gets to be 16, 17, 18 years old, those tournament fees they double.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have a family friend that's playing on a travel with a travel ball organization, I'll say. And
I talked with him this weekend.
Yeah. And it's so I know how expensive it could be. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's part of the driving force behind this concept is to that's a part of travel ball that is a negative. Nobody out there right now, I would not think, would raise their hand and say, no, I really enjoy paying that much money for my son to play baseball or my daughter to play softball. I don't think that's a reality. So
yeah, you're right there. So to wrap up the month of August, let me ask you this. Are we saying, in travel, here's the difference between this and travel ball, having kids come to sign up in August. Travel ball, you're trying out for a team.
Right.
And you're either going to be told you made it, here's your offer to play on this team, or no, you need to keep trying out for other teams. Mm-hmm. Are we saying that the same for player development? The difference between travel and recreation is every kid who signs up for recreation ball gets a chance to play, right?
Sure.
And I love that. That's one of the things I love about the local recreation league here in Athens, Ohio, where I live, is every child who wants to play baseball or softball, if they sign up in this league, they will get a chance to play. Regardless of ability, regardless of disability, they find a way to modify the game for every child to play, and I love that about it. Are we saying that that's what player development program would be as well?
Yeah, I think so.
I do too.
Yeah, right. I don't know why it wouldn't be that way.
Yeah. So you sign up in August. We gather up people who have interest in coaching. We gather up people who would have interest in other parts of helping out. Sometimes it doesn't require a coach to volunteer to help in practice. If we're going to have effective practice planning, then you're going to need to bring in parents who can help with certain stations. Someone may not be a very good coach or an assistant coach, but they can put a glove on their hand and catch bullpens. Right. Or they can put balls on tees, and we can teach them how to put balls on tees. We can teach them how to put a tee in front of a throw down home plate so that the kid is hitting an inside pitch, a pitch down the middle, or a pitch that's outside, because you put the tee in a different place for each of those pitches based on the timing of the swing. Those are things that you don't think about, but those are things that you could give those tools to parents. And here's what you're doing when you give them to parents. Not only can they help your team in practice, but they can help their kid at home. Yeah. Because you talked about this the other day. You and I, just in a conversation off the air, we're talking, I think it was you, was talking about this with, that the reason why it seems like certain kids are already involved in player development, that are on travel teams, it's because those happen to be the kids of the coaches.
Right.
And the coaches are actually already doing player development with their own children.
Yeah.
But are they doing it with everybody on the team?
Right. And I would say this, I'd add to that, because I would say most kids that go and play on a travel team has had a parent work with them a lot at home, and that's elevated their development. To a point where they are able.
Because honestly, a lot of the ambition to play on a travel team comes from the parent more than the kid.
Well, yeah,
true. I shouldn't say that across the board, and it's because it's not true across the board. But that's a running joke in travel ball that it's more for mom and dad than it is for the kid. But
I understand the concept for sure. I don't think that's just for travel ball. I've seen that in rec ball as well, center ball. We have a fall league. It's the same thing. I mean, we all of us. Do things like that that impacts our kids. I know I've done it. I remember when Jake was very young, and people would come up to me because they knew I was a baseball guy, and they knew I played, they knew I've coached, and they'd say, "Oh, you're gonna have Jake play t-ball or whatever," and I would say, "And I'm not gonna make him." And I think the first 2 years that he played t-ball, it was kind of his option. But I think what happens, at least from my perspective, is he moved up to coach pitch, and he had a little bit of success. And I think that bar raises a little bit. Yeah. And it's kind of two concepts here. It feels good. It feels good to see your child have success. So it's addicting, It's a fun feeling. But two, after they get to that bar, it's hard not to expect them to stay at that bar every time. You don't expect them to drop, so you're always wanting that bar to raise. So it's kind of two problems. But yeah, I think we do that as adults. I think we lead our kids into things sometimes because we enjoy it just as much as they do. Oh yeah, sort of like when your child starts out late May and June, he's crushing the ball, turning on pitches that are on the inside part of the plate, but in late July, he seems to be a little more reluctant and hitting everything on the ground to the right side. Sort of like that. What's wrong? Yeah, good call, Coach. that hit a little close to home there. I think we should use personal conversations in these podcasts. We call this candid and transparent conversations. So I just got you. Yeah. So. On the flip side too, though, parents want the best for their kids. So the idea of let's put him in a travel organization where we think he'll get a lot of development and he'll get exposure, or she'll get exposure. That's a concept too. I'm not trying to run down all parents out there, and just remember, I'm speaking from my own experience. Always remember, yes, everybody remember that. That we started this whole journey into podcasting because we have both made plenty of mistakes, and we just want to talk about those out loud, and we want to help anybody else that may be in the middle of making mistakes. We understand that sometimes people might be listening to things we're saying, and there is a tension inside themselves to just want to disagree with us, to want to argue a point. And maybe if we're really honest with ourselves, the reason why you're wanting to argue is because the other side of that is, it's because I see myself in this a little bit. I can hear myself a little bit in this, and we don't want to admit that. And so it's easier to say,
no. Or because, maybe your experience is different than what we're explaining, and everything is fine. If so, we're not asking. This isn't for you. We're not asking you to change.
Yeah.
Keep doing what you're doing.
And let us know. Let us know. Don't be afraid to reach out.
We'll implement whatever it is that you're doing into this, because we want to take the best of everything and try to put it together and see what we can come up with. So,
Right.
so August we sign them up. Let's get into September a little bit. So now you have a whole.
Love September.
Me too. It's a great month. You got a group of people, parents, coaches, kids that are in the program. They're going to be playing games in the player development program come spring and summer of the following year. What are we doing in September? Well, hopefully a lot of these kids are playing football or soccer or running cross country or tennis or golf, whatever sports there are out there, because again, we're advocates of kids playing multiple sports. If they're only throwing a baseball or a softball or hitting a softball, or they're only competing for that one little part of the year in this one particular sport, there's a lot of physiological things that, a lot of studies with your body and the way your body doesn't develop athletically as well as at younger ages, particularly if you're only making the same movements. Mm-hmm. The advocacy, the pro about in the pros and cons of playing multiple sports is, one of the great arguments is that when kids are playing other sports, they're utilizing other muscles, other fast twitch muscles, and they're actually becoming more athletic on a rounded scale. And that's one of the reasons why, as someone who works heavily with strength training, that we use a lot of mobility work and functional work in addition to just getting underneath the bar and lifting, because we want to make sure that we're staying, we're increasing our mobility, increasing fast twitch muscles, and that explosiveness as well. And those off-season strength and conditioning programs are often for kids that are not playing other sports. I mean, if you're in another sport, I think you should be strength training all year round anyway, regardless of what you're playing. So.
Yeah, that concept is kind of, I feel like it's kind of just came about in the last few years, that a lot of experts in mm-hmm. strength and conditioning from a youth perspective or an athlete perspective are saying that.
Yeah.
Don't stop working out. Just you can work out on game days.
You need to work out on game days.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that would be a big no-no. 20 years ago. People would say no, you can't do that.
Yeah. If you may work out a little differently.
Sure.
But
right.
you don't. I mean, honestly, it's not that different, though.
Yeah.
Did you see some of the videos and the pictures of the Michigan team during the College World Series on the morning of game day?
I didn't see
game
that,
one.
No.
They were getting after it in the weight room. Yes, I'm talking guys were in there squatting with some serious poundage on the bar. Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, you get accustomed to
mm-hmm.
a program, and it's just like it's everyday life. It does nothing changes.
I'll be honest with you. I work out. I mean, for my age, I work out. I feel like I work out pretty heavily with weights. I go hard with weights on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I'll tell you this: when I'm done, my legs are still a little weak, from that workout. If I'm working out at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, but by afternoon and evening, I could play a game.
Right. Again.
Sure. In fact, I'm more loose. In fact, on Friday last week, when we played our doubleheader at the Old Man's tournament last Friday. Friday was one of my workout days. I didn't skip that day. Granted, I didn't play as much on Friday. I was kind of saving myself, but yeah, it wasn't even a second thought, and that's the nature of the game. You go to college, that's if you're going to play ball in college, softball, baseball, whatever, that's the way it's going to be. So you need to start doing it now in high school.
Yeah, I think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves on the topic, but I got to say this because I think it's so important. I think when you think about your experience in youth sports, it's usually the best kids in the sport are usually the fastest, mm-hmm. the strongest, and I would say most aggressive.
The scrappiest kid. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
All those things are developed through weight training, through strength conditioning training, and it's going to be true forever. A lot of times those kids they have a jump on the other kids, so you mm-hmm. see it. They're faster, they're stronger, they're more aggressive.
That's what you're seeing.
That's what you're
seeing.
If
you don't know what you're seeing,
yes,
we're telling you that's what you're seeing,
and that would be true. That's true always.
Yes,
even as you get older. A lot of times those kids will get caught up to other kids will mm-hmm. catch them, But if those kids continue, if they began a workout program and continue to develop those skills, they would continue to have that advantage.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I'll just say this, and I can be definitive about this, and I could back this statement up with a lot of people who would agree, people in these positions who would agree, and that is this. Some of you are listening, you have kids that are right now in high school or they're coming up into high school and they want to play ball in college. They want to play softball, baseball, basketball, football, whatever. I mean, football's a no-brainer. But since you and I deal a lot with baseball, this is what we can speak confidently on. If your child is not actively involved in strength training in high school, he's not going to make it in college. He is not going to make it. He may be really super talented and he might get offers to play in college, but when he gets there, he's going to be lifting. Right. He's going to be strength training, and it's going to be a whole different world to him. And if you have a kid that's average in talent, if he's good enough to play in college, but he's not involved in strength training right now, as a teenager, growing into those recruiting years, you need to get him involved in it. You need to get him to love it, because if you've got to fall in love with getting stronger. You got to fall in love with doing what it takes to get faster, bigger, and stronger.
Yeah.
And people get concerned about that. They like, well, if I get bigger, I'll get slower. That's a misnomer.
Yeah.
You actually, there have been football players, you can see they'll do studies now. And now they have these combines, football players coming into camp one year, and they weigh 145. He's defensive back, so they come in their first year weighing 145 pounds, and you're like, man, that dude is quick. He runs his 40, in a 4.5 or whatever, and then he puts on 20 pounds over the off season because he's in there lifting like crazy and squatting and eating like crazy. So he puts on 20 pounds, but what's he putting that? What kind of poundage is it? That's muscle.
Right.
It's strength. So now he's running a 4.4.
Yeah.
As 20 pounds heavier.
Right.
It's not all about weight.
All you have to do is watch a game. We went to watch the Indians and the Reds play a few weeks ago, and I never noticed how big Francisco Lindor is.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
He's a monster.
Yeah.
And seeing him in person, he's
the ones that surprise you are the ones that you don't think are big. I mean, the ones that like you see Puig in that
sure
cutoff shirt.
The cutoff,
yeah, that dude's a monster. but there are some that you're like, oh, he's not very big. But then you see him in person. They come over to sign autograph or whatever. And you're like, my gosh, look at that guy's forearms.
Right.
Look at his shoulders.
Yeah.
And
I'd say there are guys too that are, and people in general that don't look that strong, but because of their workout program, they're very strong.
Yeah, and that's a body type issue usually.
Yeah.
I feel strong right now. I certainly don't look strong.
Right. I think functional strength is an important thing to think about.
Yeah, we're not talking about bodybuilding here. We're talking about getting strong. So that's one of the things that we would start. We would encourage people to in the fall, September, October, we would run a loosely organized fall program in which players could show up, come together for a couple of hours once or twice a week. The first hour could be, instruction time, particular skill in a drill, like we talked about. Maybe the second hour be a pickup game. In a previous episode, I talked about how we put together a Sunday ball. I kind of picture that September, October time being that Sunday ball type of situation. And again, it's not mandatory. It's not something that just because you signed up to be in this that you have to come, or we're not going to let you play in the spring. It's for those that aren't doing anything currently in the fall, or maybe you are doing something, but you just want to come to this too, and you can make it work. That's great. That's fine. But it's putting the effort out there to say this is a great opportunity to help you develop, and we're going to do that. Now, again, someone might say, when are you ever going to put the gloves down? Are you sure this isn't a year-round program? Well, we're getting there. We're not at November yet.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah, and I love this idea here of allowing unstructured free play, but at the same, starting that off with an instruction period, and you can use that unstructured free play to take notes. You don't have to be involved in the game at all. It'd be a great opportunity for coaches to sit back and see scenarios play out in front of them and say, oh, we did that wrong.
Yeah.
We need to work on that.
It's a great coaches training tool.
Yeah, definitely.
You have 3 good months of helping coaches. I mean, I tell you, one of the great training tools is sitting back and not saying anything, getting yourself ready for the coming spring. Because you might realize in the fall when these kids are out there playing and you're sitting there and they're playing, they're doing some pickup type play, unstructured free play, and you're taking your notes in your notebook journal, and you see them correct something on their own without you having to say something. That could become a really big lesson for you come springtime and summertime the following year when you pause and realize, do I really have to shout about this? Do I really have to pull this kid aside in this moment for that thing?
Wow, that's
and you
great.
start to pick your battles a little bit better because you saw in previous experience that that's probably something he can correct on his own.
That's a great point.
So
Great point.
well, we're going to make a lot more great points in the next episode, and we'll just pick up with November and move on from there, and we'll get into the season and talk a little bit more about what this player development program looks like. I know we've been talking about player development program for a while here at the beginning of this podcast, but that's kind of what kicked off the idea for us to even do a podcast at all. But we have a lot more things we want to talk with you about here in coming episodes. We're going to have some guests. We already have some guests lined up that we're excited to bring in. My son Brock's going to come in, talk a little bit about his own experience in the recruiting process and the experience of playing NCAA Division II college ball. He'll be a junior this year. We're going to bring in a softball mind who also played Division I college softball, and she's now coaching. She's coaching high school ball and travel ball, and she's providing personal instruction. She's all over the gamut of softball, and she has a lot of great things to say, a lot of great things to offer for those who are involved in the world of fast pitch softball. And we might have another special guest that we'll bring in as well. So we're lining them up now, baby. It's not just you and me. People are getting tired of hearing us talk, so they're like, "Hey, I'll come on." So, you got anything to say to wrap this thing up?
Nope. We'll see you next episode, everyone. Thanks.